In 1998, the medical doctor and researcher Dr. Jeffrey Long started the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, together with its corresponding website, NDERF.org. Presently managed by his wife, the attorney and author Jody Long, the site was first designed to collect NDE testimonies from all over the world. For over 2 decades, thousands of people have sent their NDE testimonies and answered the Long's detailed questionnaire. These include people of every race, creed, color, and corner of the world. After studying the extensive data, Dr. Long concluded the following. First, no two near-death experiences are identical. Second, most NDEs share a pattern of elements that tend to occur in consistent order. Third, NDEs usually include at least one or more of the following elements. 1. Out-of-body experience, OBE. 2. Heightened senses. 3. Intense and generally positive emotions or feelings. 4. Passing into or through a tunnel. 5. Encountering a mystical or brilliant light. 6. Encountering other beings, either mystical beings or deceased relatives or friends. 7. A sense of alteration of time or space. 8. A life review. 9. Encountering unworldly or heavenly realms. 10. Encountering or learning special knowledge. 11. Encountering a boundary or barrier. 12. A return to the body, either voluntary or involuntary.
I'd read very little about near-death experience and knew of the concept. I was actually in my residency training in radiation oncology. That's what I do all day professionally. But I had a college friend over and his wife, and we were having a nice meal, and we were all sitting there yakking, and the wife of my friend mentioned that she had so many allergies that were so severe that at one time she was having an operation under general anesthesia, and she coded. But every instinct I had in the way she said that, it didn't sound fearful. It sounded like there was an air of mystery. So if you have a severe allergic reaction and your heart stops, you know it immediately. The EKG, measure of electrical activity of the heart, immediately goes into a huge racket. There's alarms everywhere, so you know immediately. So here, but getting back to my wife's friend, so she said that with kind of a mysterious tone in her voice, and there was literally about a 20-30 second pause where literally, very possibly my whole future research in NDE hung in the balance, because I considered it the stupidest question I could ask as a doctor. Well, did something happen while you're under general anesthesia and your heart stopped? And I had to sort of get up the courage, if you will, before I could ask what should have been the dumbest question in my life. And as soon as I said that, she popped up and went, "Why, yes," and described a dramatic near-death experience, consciousness above the body, that EKG measurement racket, the panic in the operating room. I mean, you can just imagine going through a tunnel, life review, very detailed near-death experience, but she didn't know what happened. She wasn't aware of a near-death experience. So I said, geez, I read about this a couple years ago briefly. I think you had one of those near-death experience things. And I mean, it was so dramatic, the concept of her heart stopping, obviously, and coding, literally, and being under general anesthesia. That immediately got me to thinking, if this happens and this is real, then this changes my whole view of the universe. This is beyond anything medically possible. There's nothing I've ever had in my medical training that could possibly explain that. It got me started several years later to go to the original source of data, that being those that had near-death experiences, share it on the NDERF website so that I could make up my own mind, with that burning question I had, are near-death experiences real? And wow, did I ever get an answer. In recent years, many studies have been published in scholarly journals that compared the so-called traditional pencil and paper surveys that you do in person with internet-based surveys, and they found to be equally reliable. So we have that confidence. This is by far the largest publicly accessible collection of near-death experiences in the world.
The following is only one of the many testimonies found in the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation's website. Written under the name of Jewel H., Near-Death Experience number 3315.
I was at the beach, body surfing for about 30 minutes. I was exhausted because the surf was very rough, and there was a very strong undertow. The waves were getting larger, but I couldn't get out of the water because of the undertow. I dove under a huge wave, hoping that it would carry me to shore. Inside the wave was a tremendous wall of water that hurled me around like clothes in a washing machine. I had absolutely no control of my body, as the water slammed me into the ocean floor. I didn't know where the water surface was. The force of the water had knocked all of the air out of my lungs, so I decided that I was not going to make it. At this thought, a voice in my head said that all who have died have lived. I began to relax and realized that I didn't need to breathe anymore, and the pain of my lungs sucking in water had stopped. I began to feel very warm, sleepy, and was floating in a gray space. I was overwhelmed with a wonderful sense of unconditional love and such a sense of wholeness, of being connected to everything, and of everything being equal to everything else. Then, I was floating just below the waves as a point of consciousness. I felt super aware and could see farther and think faster. Then, I thought about how my father, who was on the shore, would react to my death. Suddenly, I was above the water surface, looking at my father, who was scanning the water to see what had happened to me. I knew that he would continue his life just fine without me, and that he would get over it. Then, I was below that surface again, and wondered when my life would flash before me. I felt that there was an invisible someone with me. I was given a vision of the activities of my short life. It was like it was all in a book with pages flipping by, except that the pictures were like little movies. But it was a disappointing movie, as I was only 17 at the time and I felt I had not accomplished what I had come for in this life. I was told that if I chose to leave my life at this point, I would have to come back and do this all over again. This invisible someone did not have any judgment to offer, and I felt that the judgment would come from myself. In fact, I have concluded that this was only myself, a higher version of myself. At some point, I asked what the purpose of life was. And the answer I received was, to help other people. Then, I began to hear wonderful music, not like any that I've heard in life. I could not identify the instruments or the melody. Next, I could hear some far-off school bells. Their sound was luring me off to the right and into another dimension from which there would be no turning back. I did not hesitate at this barrier. I had no regrets of leaving anything behind from my life. Without warning, I was suddenly and violently sucked down toward my body. I was still face down on the ocean floor. On the way down, I was told, "It's not your time yet." Once I was back in my body, I still had no idea where the surface of the water was. Then, I actually felt a pair of physical hands, one under each foot, push me to the surface, where I was able to stand up in chest-deep water. I was so very angry. I felt so cheated. I didn't want to leave that place to come back to this life. It took me many years to finally get over that anger and forgive God for sending me back to my life. But it was never mine in the first place, for He was the one who gave me this life.
Written under the name of Jewel H., Near-Death Experience number 3315.